Autumn told me she was going out with her ex and that it was only for closure. I said okay. Then I followed her, recorded what happened, canceled the wedding, made sure everyone saw the truth, and left without saying goodbye. 2 nights before our rehearsal dinner, we were sitting across from each other at a small table, eating pasta like everything was normal. We had been together for 3 years. We had been engaged for 8 months. The wedding was in 2 days. Rehearsal was the next night. Families were already in town. My parents were excited. Her parents were excited. Friends were texting about schedules and speeches. The whole thing was moving forward like a train that could not stop. Then Autumn pushed her food around her plate and said she needed to meet Calvin. She said she needed closure with him before we got married. She said it mattered to her that she ended that part of her life properly. She said Calvin was only in town for a few days, and this was the only time she could do it. I stared at her and waited for her to meet my eyes. She did not. I asked when. She said tonight. She finally looked up and said she knew the timing was strange, but she needed this. I put down my fork and kept my voice calm. I said okay, do what you need to do. Her face changed fast. She looked surprised. She had been ready for a fight. I could see it in her posture, like she had prepared speeches in her head and expected me to argue. But I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I did not accuse her. I did not beg her to stay. She asked if I was really okay with it. I told her she was an adult. If she wanted closure, she could go get it. Relief washed over her face. She reached across the table, squeezed my hand, and thanked me for understanding. She said she loved me. She said it would not change anything between us. I told her I knew. Around 9 p.m., she kissed me at the door. She was already typing on her phone, probably messaging him. She told me not to wait up. Then she left, heels clicking down the hallway toward the elevator. I waited exactly 5 minutes. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and a portable charger. I am an engineer. I do not trust guesses when I can get proof. I believe in checking. I believe in verification. Following someone is not hard. You keep distance. You stay calm. You do not do anything reckless. Autumn drove to Marcello's, an Italian place downtown with soft lights and small tables. The kind of place people choose for dates, not for closure. I parked across the street and watched through the front window. Calvin was already there. Mid-30s. Good suit. The kind of man who likes to call himself an entrepreneur. He stood when she walked in. They hugged. It was not a quick, friendly hug. It was long. His hand rested on the small of her back. Her face was pressed into his shoulder like she belonged there. They sat in a corner. They ordered wine. Autumn laughed. Calvin leaned closer when he talked. At one point, she touched his arm, gentle and familiar, like it was natural for her. That is not what closure looks like. I sat in my car for 90 minutes and watched. My phone buzzed nonstop. My best man, Quincy, asking about rehearsal timing. My mother asking if I was nervous. I ignored all of it. At 10:10 p.m., they paid and walked out together. Autumn got into Calvin's car. I followed. They drove to the Grand View Hotel, a small boutique place where privacy is part of what you pay for. Not many cameras. Not many questions. I watched them enter the lobby together. I watched Calvin speak to the front desk. I watched the clerk hand him a key card. Room 314. 3rd floor. I sat in my car for 30 minutes, telling myself to be sure. Telling myself there was still a chance this was innocent. Telling myself there might be an explanation that did not destroy my life. I could not find even one reason to believe that. So I got out of my car, crossed the lot, and took the stairs to the 3rd floor. The hallway was quiet. Room 314 was halfway down. The curtains were cheap and slightly open. If you do not pull them tight, there's a gap. They had not pulled them tight. I stood outside for 3 minutes. I did not need to break in. I did not need to knock. I did not need to guess. My phone camera captured everything I needed. Nothing graphic. Just clear. Clothes on the floor. 2 bodies in bed. Autumn's face visible in profile. Calvin's hand in her hair. The timestamp in the corner of my screen read 11:13 p.m. That was my confirmation. I walked back to my car, backed up the video to multiple cloud accounts, and saved it to a flash drive I kept in my glove box. Then I drove home. Our apartment was dark and empty. It felt like a place that already belonged to someone else, like I was standing inside a memory that was fading. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and started making a list. A strict list. A list with steps and deadlines. I did not cry. I did not shake. I did not pace. I planned. At 4:13 a.m., I heard a key in the lock. Autumn slipped inside quietly. She froze when she saw me sitting there, fully dressed, laptop open. She smiled like a child caught sneaking in late. She said, "Baby, you were still up." I closed my laptop calmly and said I was going over wedding details and could not sleep because I was excited. Her whole body relaxed. She came close and kissed my forehead. She said she could not sleep either. She said she loved me. I said I know. She went into the bedroom, humming softly. Happy. Satisfied. As soon as she disappeared, I opened my laptop again. I had an email draft addressed to the venue coordinator. Her name was Stephanie. I had met her twice. Efficient, professional, the kind of person who does not ask questions if you are direct. In the email, I wrote that when Autumn reached the altar, Stephanie needed to hand her a sealed envelope. She had to tell Autumn it was from me. She had to make sure Autumn opened it there in front of everyone. Then I sent it. I did not sleep. I did not see the point. I spent the next 4 hours finalizing everything. Every detail. Every step. Every backup plan. By sunrise, I had a plan that would have made any project manager proud. Autumn's alarm went off at 9:30. I heard her moving around, getting ready. I was already dressed, coffee in hand, standing by the door. She called from the bathroom and asked where I was going. I told her I had last-minute meetings with vendors and would see her at rehearsal. She stepped into the hallway wearing one of my old shirts, hair messy, smiling at me like she had not spent half the night with another man. She said, "Love you." I said, "Love you too." I meant it the last time I said it for real. Now the words felt like metal in my mouth. I drove to the Belmont estate, where the wedding was supposed to happen. I found Stephanie in her office looking at seating charts. She asked if everything was okay. I told her I needed a favor. I handed her an envelope. Inside was the flash drive and a handwritten note. I told her that tomorrow, at the altar, she must give the envelope to Autumn. It had to happen in front of everyone. That was the only instruction that mattered. Stephanie looked confused and asked why. Because I would be there. I told her I would not. Then I placed cash on her desk. $800. I told her it was for her discretion. She stared at the money, then at me, then at the envelope. She asked if we had an agreement. I said yes. She hesitated, then nodded and accepted it. Next stop was my landlord's office. I terminated our lease immediately. I lost the security deposit. $2,400 gone. I did not care. Then I went to the bank. I separated every joint account. I transferred Autumn's contributions back to her personal account and kept mine. Clean. Exact. No one could accuse me of stealing. By 2 p.m., I was back at the apartment with 2 suitcases and 3 boxes. I took clothes, documents, my grandfather's watch, photos of my parents, important papers. I left the rest. Furniture, decorations, wedding gifts. All of it could rot. I loaded my car and drove to Quincy's place. I parked in his garage and started unloading. Quincy looked at me like I had lost my mind. He asked what was going on. I told him to trust me and said I would explain after tomorrow. After the wedding. He did not like it, but he knew me. He could tell I was not joking. That evening, I went to the rehearsal at 6 p.m. I arrived early. I shook hands with the officiant. I helped arrange chairs. I smiled at family members and friends. I acted like a man who was about to marry the love of his life. My groomsmen arrived. My parents arrived. Autumn's family arrived. People laughed and took photos and made jokes about married life. Autumn arrived at 6:40, a little late, wearing a sundress, glowing like someone who believed her own story. She hugged her bridesmaids and kissed her mother's cheek. Then she spotted me and lit up. She ran over and wrapped her arms around me. I held her. I felt her heartbeat against my chest. She whispered that she was nervous. I told her not anymore. We practiced the ceremony. Walk, stand, vows, kiss, smile. I stood at the altar during the run-through and pictured her in white the next day. My mother leaned toward me during a break and said I seemed calm. I told her I knew exactly what I was doing. After rehearsal, we had dinner at Marcello's, the same place where Autumn had met Calvin. The irony almost made me laugh. In the parking lot afterward, Autumn pulled me aside. She played with my tie and, said tradition, said we should not see each other the night before the wedding. She said she would stay at her sister's place. She said it was bad luck to see the bride before the wedding. I nodded and said right. But I knew she was not going to her sister's. I knew exactly where she was going. I knew who she would be with. She kissed me and said, "See you at the altar." I said, "Yeah, see you there." When she drove away, I checked my phone. Stephanie had confirmed she received the envelope. My landlord had emailed the termination paperwork. A prepaid burner phone I had bought was charging in my car. I went back to the apartment one last time. I took my grandfather's watch from the nightstand. I left my key on the kitchen counter near a half-empty bottle of wine from our anniversary. Then I left. I got a hotel room across town and texted Quincy for my new number. I told him that tomorrow, no matter what happened, he had to trust me and not ask questions. He replied instantly, demanding to know what the hell was happening. I did not answer. I turned off my old phone and left it in a drawer. My alarm went off at 6:30 a.m. Wedding day. I showered, shaved, put on my suit, drove to the Belmont estate. I arrived at 8 a.m., 3 hours before the ceremony. Quincy and my brother Felix were already there. They looked confused and tense. Felix asked why we were there so early. I pulled them aside, away from the staff arranging flowers and chairs. I told them that in a few hours, everything was going to explode. I told them I needed them to trust me and not interfere. Quincy's face tightened. He asked what I had done. I told him not yet. I handed Felix a sealed letter. I told him that if something happened to me, or if I disappeared, he had to give the letter to our parents. Felix told me I was scaring him. I told him good. That meant he was paying attention. Guests began arriving at 11 a.m. From the groom's suite window, I watched cars pull up. Aunts, uncles, friends, co-workers. Around 120 people who thought they were about to witness a wedding. My phone buzzed with a message from Quincy. He said Autumn texted the group chat and claimed she was running late because hair and makeup took longer than expected. I smiled. She was not a hair and makeup. I had checked her location earlier that morning. She was still at the Grand View Hotel. Room 314. She was waking up in Calvin's bed and rushing to get dressed, probably laughing about the timing. I asked Quincy if everything at the altar was set. He said yes. The officiant was ready. Stephanie had the envelope. Good. I also hired the photographer. I paid him extra. I told him to document what happened. Around noon, I received the message I had been waiting for. The bride had arrived and was getting dressed. I looked at myself in the mirror. I straightened my tie. My hands were steady. Quincy came to the door and said it was time to seat people. I told him I would be out in a minute. He left. I heard music outside. Soft strings. Guests settling into chairs. I texted Stephanie one last reminder. Make sure she opens it there. Then I walked out of the groom's suite. But I did not walk to the altar. I walked to the back lot. I got in my car. I started the engine. At 12:32 p.m., I heard the bridal music begin inside the venue. I put the car in drive and pulled away. In the rearview mirror, the Belmont estate grew smaller. Inside, Autumn was walking down the aisle in her white dress, smiling and looking for me. She was about to find something else. My phone buzzed again. Quincy asked where I was. I did not answer. I kept driving. Calls started coming in one after another. Quincy, Felix, my mother, my father. Numbers I did not recognize, probably her family. I silenced the phone and kept going. At a red light, I checked the group chat. Messages were piling up. Quincy said Autumn was at the altar and looking for me. Felix said this was not funny. Quincy asked what he was supposed to tell her. I did not reply. The light turned green. I drove on. Then Stephanie called. I almost ignored it. But I answered. She said it was done. She said she gave Autumn the envelope, and Autumn was opening it now. Behind Stephanie's voice I heard chaos, shouting, crying. I said thank you and hung up. I pulled into a rest stop and sat with the engine running. It was 12:48 p.m. My phone kept lighting up with messages. Felix asked what I did. Quincy said everyone just saw. Quincy said Autumn's mother was screaming. Quincy said her father stormed out. Quincy said my mother was crying. Quincy said guests were leaving. Quincy said Autumn fell to the ground. Quincy said she kept asking where I was. I turned the phone face down and stared at the highway. The video was only 90 seconds. Timestamp visible. Location visible. Faces visible. No room for doubt. No room for excuses. Just the truth on a screen in front of everyone. Autumn called me. I let go to voicemail. She called again. I silenced it. Then text came through rapidly. She asked where I was. She said she could explain. She said it was not what it looked like. She begged. She said she loved me. 15 messages in 2 minutes. I blocked the number. Calls came from her sister. Blocked. From her mother. Blocked. More numbers. Blocked. My phone kept vibrating like it was alive. So I turned it off and put it in the glove box. The silence was immediate. I sat there for 20 minutes, watching trucks roll past, then got back on the road. At a gas stop later, I turned the phone on just long enough to check. Dozens of missed calls. Dozens of texts. One message from Quincy stood out. He said the venue was empty. Everyone left. Autumn was still there, sitting in her dress near the altar, not moving, not speaking. He said her father almost hit him before someone held him back. He said my parents left without saying a word. Another message said Autumn asked Quincy where I was. Quincy told her I was gone. New city, new number, new life. Another message said she found the second note in the envelope and was reading it. Because I had included a handwritten message onto the flash drive. It said she wanted closure with Calvin, so I was giving her closure with me. It said the wedding was canceled. Vendors were paid. The apartment lease was ended. My phone number was disconnected. It said do not look for me, because she would not find me. It said goodbye. I closed my messages. Felix texted and asked if I was safe because mom was panicking. I replied that I was safe and that I would call in a few days. I told him to tell her I was sorry she had to see it, but it had to be done. Felix replied that what Autumn did was awful, but what I did was nuclear. He said she earned it. I did not answer. I turned the phone off again. By the time I reached Boulder, it was almost 5 p.m. I checked into a plain hotel. Nothing fancy. Just a room, a bed, a lock. The clerk asked if I was in town for business. I said something like that. A fresh start. He welcomed me to Colorado. I went to my room, dropped my bag, sat on the bed, and finally let the quiet settle into my bones. My hands were still steady. My breathing was even. I did not feel anger the way people expect. I did not feel victory. I did not feel heartbreak in a dramatic way. I felt finished, like a door closing. Tomorrow I would look for an apartment. In 2 weeks I would start my new job. I would build a life that did not include her. That night I slept hard. When I woke up the next day, it was 9:13 a.m. I had slept 14 hours. I turned on my phone. Hundreds of notifications. I deleted them without reading. Then I opened my email and saw one message from Quincy from early morning. He said Autumn had been calling everyone, my parents, my co-workers, mutual friends. She was trying to find me. No one knew, or if they did, they were not telling her. He said my mother told her to stop calling. He said my father warned her that if she contacted them again, they would file harassment charges. He said Autumn was unraveling. He said her family took her home. He heard her sister had to drag her out of the venue because she refused to leave. She kept saying I would come back, that I just needed space. He said she did not understand yet. I was really gone. I closed the email, that I opened a map and searched for apartments in Boulder. I found one by noon. A one-bedroom in North Boulder with a month-to-month lease. I paid 3 months up front. The landlord did not ask questions. She asked if I was moving from out of state. I said yes. Then I went to IKEA and bought a bed, a couch, and basic kitchen supplies. The worker asked if I needed help assembling the furniture. I told him I was an engineer and I would figure it out. By evening I had a bed frame and a mattress. It was enough. I ordered pizza and ate it sitting on the floor because I had not unpacked. My new phone buzzed. Quincy said Autumn showed up at his office and security had to escort her out. She was crying and asking where I went. I did not respond. He texted again and said my mother called him and asked if I was really okay. Quincy told her yes. He said she was not angry, only sad it happened. I set the phone down and stared at the empty walls. My mother was not mad. That mattered. The next day, I handled paperwork. New license. Address updates. Car registration. I was erasing my old life step by step. Felix messaged that Autumn's father came to the house looking for me. Dad told him I did not live there and to leave. The man tried to push past. Dad called the police and they escorted him away. Felix also said Autumn posted a long message online about mistakes and people not knowing the full story. Half our relatives told her to delete it. She deleted it after an hour. For a moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. Then I remember the way she kissed me goodbye before going to Calvin's hotel. The way she hummed in the shower the next morning like everything was fine. The feeling passed. A few days later, I was at the grocery store and saw a couple arguing in the parking lot. The woman was crying. The man was yelling. She kept apologizing. I walked past, but something about it stayed with me. That night, I could not sleep. I stared at the ceiling and thought about the last fight Autumn and I had. It had been about wedding colors. Emerald versus navy. We compromised on forest green. Small, stupid arguments. And underneath it all, she had already been texting Calvin. Already planning her so-called closure. Already planning to blow up our lives. Then Felix texted that a package came for me and he forwarded it to my new address. I was not expecting anything. When it arrived, I opened it slowly. Inside were things I had left behind. My engagement ring. The apartment keys. A printed bank statement showing the joint account closure and the exact amounts returned to Autumn. A receipt for a donation to a domestic violence shelter in the amount I would have spent on my wedding band. And a note, written in my handwriting, saying I gave her 3 years and she gave me clarity and now we were even. I stared at the items spread across my counter. I did not remember preparing it, but I must have in those sleepless hours when I was planning everything. Then an unknown number called. I answered without thinking. It was Autumn. Her voice sounded broken and raw. She said she only wanted to hear my voice. She said she was not asking for anything. She said she got the package and saw that I did not take a penny more than my share. She mentioned the donation in the note. She said I thought of everything. She laughed bitterly and said even in destroying her, I was fair and precise. I should have hung up, but I stayed silent. She said she would not call again. She promised. She said she just needed me to know she understood now. She said I did not disappear because I was cruel. I disappeared because staying would have meant accepting less than I deserved. She said she hoped I found what I was looking for and hoped my future partner knew how lucky she was. Then she ended the call. I stood there holding the phone, listening to the dead line. Then I noticed something else in the box. A small envelope with my name, written in Autumn's handwriting. Inside was a photo from our first date, 3 years earlier. We were at a street fair, sharing funnel cake, laughing. She looked happy. I looked happy. We looked like people who still believed in each other. On the back, she wrote that she was sorry she forgot what that felt like. I held the photo over the trash and could not drop it. Not yet. I left it on the counter for days, then put it in a drawer. Out of sight, but still there. I started my new job as a senior water systems engineer for the city. The team was small and calm. My supervisor gave me a project and left me alone. It was exactly what I needed. At lunch one day, I checked my old email one last time. There was a message from Whitney, Autumn's sister. She said Autumn moved away to Arizona and was trying to restart. She said their father still would not speak to Autumn. The mother sent short messages. She said Autumn was in heavy therapy and on medication. She said the fallout was real. Then she said the wedding video leaked online and went viral. She said it was everywhere. She said Autumn had to delete her social accounts because people were brutal. I read it twice. I had not leaked it. I did not need to, but someone did. Now the shame was not only private. It was public and permanent. I deleted the email. Then I deleted the whole account. Done. A few weeks later, I joined a climbing gym to keep my mind busy. The instructor was Priya, a structural engineer with a dry sense of humor. She corrected my form and taught me how to climb without overthinking every move. After a couple of sessions, she asked if I wanted to get coffee. We sat in a small cafe near the gym. She said I looked new to Boulder. She said I had that looked like I was still learning where everything was. She asked if I was running from something or running towards something. I thought about lying. I did not. I told her it was a bit of both. She nodded and did not push. We talked about work and routes and how Colorado weather changes fast. It was easy. After that, we met again. Then again. Meanwhile, Quincy kept me updated when I needed it. He called one day and said he'd been contacted by a lawyer. Autumn was trying to claim emotional distress and suggest I set up a public humiliation campaign. Quincy said he refused to help her case. Felix refused too. My parents refused too. I asked what she was trying to get. Quincy said probably money or an apology or anything that made her feel less guilty. I told him she could blame herself. Later, I received a legal order filed on my behalf. A restraining order. Autumn could not contact me directly or indirectly for 12 months. There was a note from my attorney saying the evidence of harassment was overwhelming and I was protected. The paper felt heavy in my hands, not because I love the idea of legal walls, but because it proved how far things had gone. Then Priya asked me out to dinner. Real dinner. A real date. I hesitated for a second because I did not know if I was ready. But I also knew waiting for perfect readiness was a trap. So I said yes. The day of the date, An unknown number texted me a photo. It was Autumn sitting in what looked like a therapist's office. Her hair shorter, face thinner, eyes hollow. She wrote that she knew she was breaking the restraining order and did not care. She said she needed me to see what I did to her, that she was destroyed, and that she needed me to carry the pain too. She wrote that I won. She begged me to tell her I felt something. I stared at the screen for a long time. I could have responded. I could have told her I felt anger and grief and relief all mixed together. But I did not. Instead, I documented the messages, sent them to my attorney as proof of a violation, and blocked the number. Then I went to dinner. Priya was waiting outside the restaurant, smiling in a green dress. We ate and talked, and did not speak about my past. Halfway through, my attorney replied that the violation was recorded and they would pursue consequences. I turned my phone over and focused on the present. For the first time in weeks, I felt genuinely okay. Later that night, alone, I opened a drawer and looked at the old photo from our first date again. I stared at it for a long time. Then I tore it and threw it away. Not because I hated the memory, because I needed to stop holding it like a wound I kept touching. Months passed. Priya and I kept climbing. I got stronger. I stopped flinching every time my phone buzzed. My body stopped living in constant alert. One day I was high on the wall and Priya shouted up that I was overthinking and I should trust the hold. I shifted my weight, reached, and pulled myself up. The wall did not care about my past. It only cared whether I could keep going. After a session, my attorney emailed a final update. Autumn pleaded guilty to violating the order. A fine, a longer order, mandatory counseling. The case was closed. I read it and felt nothing dramatic. Just closure. One evening Priya asked who she was, the woman I left behind. I told her the truth in simple terms. Engaged. Cheating. Evidence at the altar. I left. Priya looked shocked, then quiet. She said it was intense. She also said she did not want to compete with a ghost. I told her she was not, and I meant it. Later, Quincy called with happier news. He got engaged. He asked me to be his best man. I said yes, because life keeps moving even after breaks. My brother called about family holidays. My mother wanted me home. She said she was proud of me for not falling apart in public, even if I fell apart privately. I went home. Things felt normal again, as normal as they could. And then, slowly, Autumn stopped being the center of my story. She became a chapter that ended. That was the real closure.